All right, here we go. Welcome, everybody. Big one today. We're going to hang out for just a minute and let people file in here. Oh, yeah. Usually we kick these things off with just some random small talk here for like a minute or two. Herman, you watch anything good this weekend?
I saw The Covenant. That was good. The Guy Ritchie
Nice.
movie. Yeah, I'm a big Jake Gyllenhaal fan. So went to that, and then watched my Dodgers, So nothing too exciting. I was sick all weekend with a sick kid, so
Oh, yeah, I heard. Everybody's feeling okay now, though?
still kind of there, but it's all good.
Good, man, good. All right. We're going to go for it. I think we've got everybody here now. So welcome everybody to the Media Buyer webinar. We're here every Monday talking about data, media buying data. My name is Brian. I'm your host here every Monday. Today we have with us Dave Herrmann, huge friend of Northbeam. I've called you one of the best media buyers in the world, David. I hope you're okay with that. So I'm gonna call you that again. This is our media buyer webinar. First, we're going to dive deep into the data. We're going to get you the latest ecom data powered by Northbeam, just to show you what trends, anomalies, interesting findings we can uncover. And then we're going to cut right to the chase, and we're going to start talking about this meta bug that happened yesterday. So let's start off with budgets. First thing to notice is that generally arrows are red this week for media buyers. You'll see that over and over through what we're looking at here. Budget share by platform is actually somewhat normalized. It's interesting to see so much drop off of TikTok. But what we've been seeing over the last couple of weeks is that a lot of people are consolidating their budget to Meta. And that's what people are doing, right? Frankly, right now on Google, PMax is still a high performer. People love it. It's working, right? Lost a little bit of budget, but locked in at 40%. It's been within a couple percentage points of that for just a couple of weeks now, right? Looking at the auction metrics, notable movements here, click-through rates and cost for clicks on TikTok. This is week over week, a more than 10% move week over week. I think for any of these platforms is something worth taking a look at. If you're seeing that in your platforms, you are not alone, right? Other notable movers here, Pinterest and on CPMs and CPCs, we know that anytime there's an algorithmic update or any type of UX UI update, you typically see issues with metrics performance. We know that Pinterest has been making a lot of moves, a lot of changes over there. It's been tough to see that get normalized, right? Other like noticeable changes, big increase in CAC and reduction on ROAS on TikTok. I wonder what's happening over there. It's hard to tell. We're seeing this across a bunch of people, and it's difficult to measure, right? But one thing that is true, and this data does not include yesterday's data, is that we've seen a reduction in performance and conversion metrics across Facebook. You'll see the whole top row of that chart on the right is red. We've been seeing that for a couple of weeks now. Still, Facebook is some of our best performers. Advantage Plus campaigns are absolutely crushing it. Thankfully, a lot of the previously dramatic performance metrics we've seen have started to plateau. We're starting to see things flatline a little bit. I like to see things within 1 or 2% changes on Google. It's not bad, right? And Advantage Plus campaigns are crushing it. Jumping over to industry, things actually revived a little bit this week. Last week was pretty slow. This week, I'm excited to see a lot more green arrows, which is funny considering the previous charts, right? But as we've been talking about the last couple of weeks, we're kind of in the middle. We're like in the in-between, spring's about to spring and all of that jazz. And people's interests are changing, their Google searches are changing, and budgets kind of haven't caught up. So I'm excited to see jewelry, finding itself again. The nice weather has people going for sports equipment. Baby's still up, apparel and fashion still up. People are flipping their closets, right? Whether it's for themselves or for their children. And we've had a string of really fantastic weather here in New York. And I get on a broken record about this, but I'm always talking about how New York and the weather that we experience here just changes the way that people buy. That changes the way they act. And I know we're always constantly looking for answers in the performance and in the data themselves or in the ad or in some way that we're trafficking it. But sometimes it is something as macro as the weather. And I think if we're going to be scientists about this, and we're going to be looking at how to get the most out of our ad accounts at all times, you got to look at all the trends, whether they're macro or micro, right? Now, that was quick. We're going to jump straight into the big stuff. So in case you do not know, which I would be stunned if you do not, there was an incident yesterday, just to recap. There was an incident yesterday where Meta overspent on ad accounts Sunday morning. It would happen very early in the morning. It lasted for about 8 hours. We saw a lot of reports that brands were seeing campaigns spend about 125% of their daily limits, usually hitting their daily budgets like in just a couple of hours. We saw CPMs up 200 to 500% for some advertisers. People were generally freaking out, right? Earlier this morning, Meta acknowledged the error in official communications. We saw issues in the ad manager status. You can see in these screenshots, some people were seeing acquisition costs, CPMs just through the roof, numbers they've never seen before in their ad accounts, right? As of last night, the issue seems to be resolved. So we have a lot of people pontificating, which is our favorite word here on the Media Buyer, pontificating about what they should have done, what they can do, why this happened. And we don't have a lot of answers. We probably won't have a lot of answers from Meta for a little while they figure it out themselves. So here with me today, you have David Herrmann to chat about this, to chat about what happened, to chat about what we can do next. So, David, barring my recap, what happened here? What did you see? And how much ad spend do you, just for context for everybody, how much ad spend are you pushing?
So how much ad spend am I pushing in a given month? Probably between 7 to 10 million.
So you really know what's going on here. Yeah.
And I have access and can see a lot of brands that I help along the way and audit and things like that. So yeah, I have a pretty good sense of like what's going on, and the trends sort of follow across the board, right? I was actually, like I said, I was at urgent care yesterday with my son when this all went down, and I started getting pings, and I was like, okay, what's going on? Logged in on my phone and saw what was happening, and it was essentially what Meta has acknowledged was it has something to do with audience network yesterday. Not so much on Instagram, and anything traffic campaigns, video view campaigns, all those pretty much are fine. They were spending normally. So something to do with the OCPM and the auction dynamics that had transpired between 1 a.m. and about 9 a.m. Pacific time. So fun thing to wake up to and deal with. Yeah. So it was fun. We pretty much had, I would say for the most part, 80 to 90% of the budgets were completely spent. And if some brands I work with spend upwards of 40, 50, $60,000 a day in ads, it's a significant amount of money that's being spent on really inefficient traffic. So that's kind of where we were at. And then obviously the comms started going on, should we turn ads off? Should we keep ads on? And I think it really kind of came down to where you were in the country or world as to when to do that. I think I feel sorry for the Europeans, because obviously they're seeing this in real time during the middle of the day. Little bit different than us waking up in the 11th hour and going like, oh, here we are. So I think it kind of benefited to where you were when you kind of discovered this.
Have you ever seen anything like this happen?
No.
Never.
No, I've run ads on Meta since they were using Microsoft Exchange back in 2009. I've never seen this. I mean, we've had outages, Black Friday, Cyber Monday outages 2 times. One time where Ads Manager basically completely broke for I think like 4 or 5 days, where we couldn't even publish ads. And then we had the other outage that happened. I think that was 2017 or 18, but nothing like this. And to happen on the Sunday morning of all times, right? It's just, nothing like this. So
I think the question on everybody's mind now, after a lot of brands losing a lot of money that's really close to their hearts, and this is dangerous for people's businesses, right? The question on everybody's mind is this something to be worried about? Is this something that it's going to happen once and it'll never happen again? Is this something where you need to take a step back and go, okay, maybe we need to evaluate how we're spending? Or is this something where you're like, you know what? It happened one time. we can move on. We're probably going to get reimbursed anyway. What's your opinion on this?
I mean, it's tech. It'll probably something will happen again. I mean, it's meta as well. It seems to me that, the issues that they've had have been far less over the last couple of years than previously. Maybe that's because they moved away from the move fast and break things sort of mentality. But ultimately human error could potentially be the cause here. We don't know. And we've seen in the past some of these issues that have happened on Meta have been caused by human error, either a line of code or whatever it may be. And so, I think it's sort of like, if you had a retail store and the store got flooded by a broken water main, it's like, it's sort of like the kind of cost of doing business, it is what it is. I think Meta has a pretty good track record of fixing things. Now, refunds is another thing. I think in this scenario, because it was so widespread, and I mean, I was getting calls from Wall Street Journal and a few other major publications last night on this, so they're going to be on it pretty quickly. So I imagine the refunds will happen, but I encourage everybody to document everything that you have, including day over day, Sunday over Sunday, showing the loss of revenue that you incurred, and really be pushing on partner reps, go on Twitter, elevate it. This is, I think, one of those times where, we as the advertisers have to be the voice, and there is a centralized group. I know Andrew Foxwell has his Foxwell Founders Group, which is a tremendous place if you're not in that. I'm not an affiliate plug or anything like that. I just think it's a great place to be for these kind of things. And it's going to be strength in numbers. I ultimately think that's the only way we're going to get heard by Meta. I did hear, based on the comms, that this did go all the way up the pipeline, which I assume that means the top leadership. So at least we're hopefully going to get something resolved rather quickly here. So fingers crossed at this point.
I have a lot of people freaked out and still don't have their campaigns back on, or their accounts, maybe they did flip all the switches off and turn everything off, which does create a shock on your account. You can literally get blocked from your account if you turn too many campaigns off at once. What do you have to say for people who maybe don't have their ads on right now?
I would turn ads back on at this point. I know, like I said, I benefited being on the West Coast with yesterday, and we kind of elected to keep our ads running after the fact, and actually did benefit from the low CPMs. I mean, they dropped pretty considerably. Now, granted, they were barely spending at that point because it had already depleted the daily budget, but it was decent numbers, right? And so we're at least able to recover something. But today is actually looking pretty good across the board, and I'm feeling pretty confident. So they did resolve it. So if you're at all apprehensive about turning ads back on due to this, I think you're fine. You can turn everything back on.
We did kind of a debrief at the end of the day where we looked at performance across a lot of our advertisers, and given these intense raises that you see here, actually a lot of people who left their ads on, it came out at the end of the day as not as big of a deal, right? There's horrible numbers in platform, and money was 100% wasted. But for people who turn their ad accounts off, you're going to have repercussions that are going to last for who knows how long,
downstream,
right?
That's the thing. It's the downstream effect of this, ultimately, right? I mean, Earth Day was Sunday, right? There's multiple things going on that people were pushing. I know for a lot of brands, including the brands that I work with, Sunday is kind of the big day of the week that we kind of bank on, right? And to lose that early morning revenue definitely hurts a considerable amount. And again, that's something that you need to go and document. I know a few people on Twitter are talking about this very hot. A few others are mentioning this, but yeah, it's true. If you can give receipts and show everything you can, this again, strength in numbers here. So just document. That's all I can say on that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to tell what percentage of reimbursement we would actually get. I mean, we're talking about that we would even get one, right? Meta's earnings report is in 2 days. like we're talking about Barry, and he's actually in the questions right now asking, how much of a refund do you think we'll see percentage wise of our spend? Is it something, you've talked about revenue?
Yeah, my guess is, and I'm sure it's going to go back to, if the fact that they mentioned audience network, it tells me that they're going to take the audience network refund, whatever was spent there, and potentially do that. And again, completely speculating here. But that would be my guess. Again, I don't know, right? Who knows what they're going to do? And are they going to do it for everybody? What, who knows? So I think that it'll be hard to really guess.
I've been seeing some reports, and we have another question coming through right here right now. I've been seeing some reports where people are still having problems with their ad spend. My thing is it that downstream, right? Like for people who are maybe seeing a bad experience now, I would ask the question like, oh, well, did you fiddle with things, right? Did you switch things off or on?
If you're still seeing issues, I definitely will be going to support on that. I know there's a few people on Twitter, Jordan Sterling, Yoni Levi, a few others that are from Facebook that I would recommend reaching out to. If you're still seeing those issues, document them and show them, because this should be fixed by now. And anything that's potentially like accelerated spend or something like that, that could also be an issue of maybe you turned ads back on in your time zone and it's almost midnight your time. Sure, it's going to spend what it can spend. So those are little things where it's like, you got to be thinking about it when you are turning ads off and electing to do something. Know that there is an impact with that as well, right? Because you're kind of messing with the dynamics of the auction, and that can cause, even I don't know the stat offhand, but it's like, if you're leaving ads off for even like 2 hours on a Sunday, that's an impact. It is, no matter how you look at it. So, but yeah, if you're still seeing a problem, I would recommend reaching out to someone either on Facebook support or on Twitter.
Yeah, that's the way to go now, is get a hold of your rep, like people who don't or who can, like
you still have a rep.
Yeah, right. and that's to your point. Like if you're connecting with people and you're getting together and you're documenting, you can work together to find yourself one or work with other people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a situation that's constantly developing for everybody here. People are desperate for answers, and the fact is that like everyone's account is going to be affected differently. You're going to see spend attributed differently. Everything's going to be weird, right? Yep. So I have one question for you. One last one here is on a macro level. Is there something to be said here about diversifying your ad spend across channels, right? Like, is there something to be said here about how your accounts are set up? Something to be said about how you're setting up campaigns? Like going forward, if you wanted to minimize, the possibility of, as they call it in the insurance industry, an act of God, right? Like your water pipe bursting, like you were talking about. Yeah. Like if you wanted to talk about how you can minimize that for your business and not just worrying about Facebook results, but how to minimize the impact of something like this on your business, what would you recommend to people?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that you will still take Meta's performance and just kind of grin and bear this at the end of the day. I mean, the bigger the brand, the bigger the spend, you should be diversifying no matter what. I mean, that's just sort of like kind of like a normal thing to be doing. Again, like I'm running ads on Pinterest and not many people do, but we do because I know that it has downstream effect and we treat it as an awareness, right? Like I have that fortune because I'm able to spend what I'm able to spend some brands. Now, a brand that's not spending more than $1,000 or $2,000 a day on ads, again, for some, that's a lot of money to a lot of brands. I don't think it makes sense to diversify. I don't. I think it makes sense just to put your eggs in one basket and just hope for the best and kind of go. So I really think it just depends on where you are and sort of like your revenue journey. And if you can find another success, it's probably going to be Facebook and Google before you go Facebook, TikTok. Because, if you are diversifying to TikTok, as many brands encounter, it's a roller coaster and it requires a lot of content. And that comes into play. Like you're going to have to pay for that content somehow, right? So I just think you have to weigh the pros and cons of all that.
It's really valid stuff. Thanks for joining us, Dave. That's going to wrap our time. Anybody here in the comments, if you have more questions, please tweet them at us. If you have a contact with Northbeam, our team's briefed and available to help on this. We're all aligned on the next steps and moving forward. For those of you who had your ad accounts really thrashed this weekend, we feel for you. Hopefully Meta can make this right and your businesses can recover. Those of you who are working at agencies or working in, just in-house and running this stuff. But this is a developing situation. We'll stay on top of it. Follow us at Northbeam on Twitter or on LinkedIn. Stay in touch. Of course, if you enjoyed this webinar, we'll be emailing out the result or the recording here just a couple minutes after we're finished. And we'll see everybody here at the same time next week. Dave, thanks for joining us, man.
You bet. Good luck, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.